Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Mormonism After Dark, where all the cool cats go on a Friday night to hang out and relax. How are you, Mr. Real, our DJ?
What an incredible night. It's been a great week. We had the Brody Awards, which I know you're going to talk about here in a moment. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up that we're going to announce here that's going on. Shows you're producing, something I'm working on. And what a cool, I was in here early and the crowd has been in here already. The folks that follow us already making comments, getting to know each other, saying hi. And what a cool thing it is I put a note in the comments. I said, what a cool thing it is that we were all in a cult, except for the Nevermo followers, and that we woke up to it. And now we come together on Fridays to celebrate this crazy thing that we all went through.
We few, we happy few, we band of brothers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel like that. It is family. It is a family of sorts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nothing binds people together more than going through battle together.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Okay. So anyway, I did want to introduce that it is Friday. It's January 16th, 2026. And yes, this is Mormonism After Dark. Thank you very much. Hey, Bill.
Yes, sir.
How was your week?
My week was exceptional. I feel like it's really been great. I can't really name something I did, but it's just been a great week. I've had a lot of fun. I did have Grandparents' Day today at my oldest grandchild's elementary school. So I got to spend an hour there, and he read a book to me and his grandma, and it was really fun and enjoyable.
That sounds special. You'll have to tell me more about it later.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. So anyway, but you also, perhaps you forgot that just 2 nights ago, 48 hours ago, you were one of the 2 co-hosts on the first ever live stream broadcast Brody Awards ceremony.
Isn't that pretty cool? Like, here's this website that's been doing this thing for a long time. And you and I have won, I think I've won awards. I know you've won a hell of a lot of them. And I reached out to the folks over there at Main Street Plaza and asked if they would have any interest in the 2 of us hosting the Brody Awards. Let it be a live show. Let us announce the winners live. Let's create that kind of excitement, give those folks recognition, and shine a light on this really cool awards ceremony, which when you've won, and again, I think I've won, but to recognize, like, it's a cool thing to be nominated for that, to see other content creators creating things in that. And it really is just a cool thing. And so what a cool night for us to be part of that.
Yeah, it was great. Had a wonderful time, dressed up. We both dressed up again, like we are tonight for that ceremony.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to treat it with the dignity that it deserves.
Yeah. What happened to those niblets?
Yes, the niblets. Dignity. Always dignity.
Oh boy. Yeah. It was a great time, and it was fun because there were new creators who had won things for the first time. There are those folks in this space who are really well known, and they're creating quality content all year long, and including yourself, who won multiple awards. You and John and Alyssa Grenfell and Nemo all won multiple awards. Rebecca Biblioteca won ex-Mormon of the Year. What a cool thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, imagine how surprised I was to find out that the reason I've never been what we found out on the show was that actually to win ex-Mormon of the Year, you don't have to be an ex-Mormon.
Yeah, they use X by itself, not with the EX, and they're treating it like X-Men, because what they've done in the past is they've had William Law look like Wolverine with those claws coming out of his hands. And the idea is it's not just about an ex-Mormon, although often that's what it is. It's somebody on this side of things who did something impressive in this space. But yes.
Yes. So when we find that out, and I found that out for the first time live on the show, imagine my surprise to find out that the reason I've never been nominated for that award of ex-Mormon for the year is not because I'm still a member.
Right. You'll have to come up with a different Yep. You'll have to come up with something else.
Yeah, that was my fig leaf for a while. Okay. So the 2025 Brody Awards, was there anything else that you wanted to say about it, Bill?
I'm looking forward to hopefully being a part of these, you and I hosting these in the future. And they really do deserve more recognition than they sometimes get. And I think putting them on a live show and announcing the winners live is a great way to do it. And I know that the folks over there at Main Street Plaza, I said kudos to them, and they wrote messages back to us through email, just saying like it was so great to do it this way. And I think it was the highlight of the week in Mormonism for me, anyway.
I think so too. I was very excited about it and it was a lot of fun. By the way, can I just take this off the screen for a second and
Please.
say this before I forget? Because sometimes I get too caught up in the show and I don't see what's sitting right in front of me.
Yeah.
I did receive in the mail this week a couple of books from a listener. There's this one. It's called Outside Forces, the screenplay by Daniel John Carey. You can see that there. And also by the same author, Daniel John Carey, Screenplay Repair Manual. So I just wanted to say thank you to the listener who sent that. And I appreciate it very, very much. And sometimes I see the listener sent this in the live chat. So
Yeah.
they're
And
there too.
by the way, he sent the same books to me, and appreciate those going out. So what a cool thing that is as well, that folks who produce materials, content, various things in this space are often trying to put those things in our hands. And kudos to the creativeness of that. And yeah, anyway, I'm really appreciative of that as well.
All right. All right. So now I don't have to worry about it, because you would not believe the number of times, maybe you would by this point, that I get to the end of a show, we're off the air, and I just look down and I say, oh, there's all these things I was supposed to talk about.
Yeah, we'll have to get to them, huh?
But now I don't have to worry about that because I did it right off the bat before I could forget.
There you go.
The narrow window nowadays. So what's next?
Well,
Let's look, shall we?
look.
Oh, there's a passing
Yeah.
to announce. Did you want to talk about this, Bill?
I just put this in here just to make a note of it. Dean Jesse, who has been instrumental in various places. I think he was connected to the whole Mark Hoffman saga a little bit. He has been a big part of Mormon history for a long, long time. And just last week, he passed away at the age of 96. You can't delve into the depths of church history without at least hearing Dean Jesse's name come up a dozen times around various issues in Mormonism. He was a scholar on the inside, a believer, helped produce the Joseph Smith Papers project. He was part of that. He also, if I remember right, he was one of the folks who was instrumental in putting some of Joseph Smith's private writings and journals and stuff forward.
Was it the personal writings of Joseph Smith? It was some kind of unwieldy title, or I don't think it was private. I think it was the personal writings of Joseph Smith. It may have been multi-volumes, like a couple of volumes. But those came out in the 1980s, and I don't know the year, but I would say in the latter half is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first times that the 1832 account of the first vision, because, yeah, it's in Joseph Smith's handwriting, was more widely available, let's say, and it caused quite a stir. In fact, do you know my former friend who goes by Dusty Smith, when he's appearing on faithful channels and talking about his reconversion back to the church after being a strident anti-Mormon? You know that guy?
I know Dusty Smith. I don't know his real name. I think you know it, but I'm familiar with who that is and his reconversion story.
Right. So he was my dear friend in college, and I don't know if he remembers that. In any of the times I've heard him recount his story, he doesn't give this as the reason or a part of the reason why he left the church in the first place. But from my point of view, it was because he told me so. It was over the phone. He was off in another state by then in law school, I think. And yeah, because of the 18th, because, talking, just seeing Jesus. There's no Heavenly Father in Jesus in the 1832 account. There's Jesus, and that's it. Apparently, a straightforward reading would be, and that was very, very, very bothersome to him. He'd been on a mission, South America. He had married a gal he met down there, I believe, in the temple, and may have had a kid by this point. And here comes the 1832 account of the first vision, right down the middle of the lane.
It is this, again, I don't want to get off in a tangent, but it's a strange thing that you and I and anyone else who doesn't have some attachment to the narrative would read the 1832 account of the first vision, know the church's history, and would go, that doesn't belong. He's telling a different story. And it's only because you're a believer and you come to the situation and go, no matter what is said here, I've got to figure out some way that this aligns.
Yes.
And then so someone like Stephen Harper goes, well, then it must be that when he says the Lord opened the heavens, that must be Heavenly Father.
Yes.
And when he said, I saw the Lord, that must be Jesus Christ. And so maybe we just make room that Lord being said twice is God and Jesus. And you only do that when you need the conclusion to come out a certain way. No one else walks into that problem and arrives at that without needing Mormonism to be true.
Right. It's like the same thing as Adam. See, Lord can mean God, the Father, or the Son in the same telling, in the same story, practically in the same sentence, I think.
Yeah.
But if you say Adam, it can also be the Father or Adam. See, just depending on who you need it to be.
Right. The games that apologists play.
Every night and every day now.
That's right, my friend.
All right. So we've got, what else was I going to say about that? I was just going to say, yeah. And he blew out of the church over that. I remember writing him long missives, trying to get him to understand that this was not something that he needed to leave the church over. But this was it as far as what he communicated to me. We were very close at the time. And people's recollections can differ. And maybe I didn't know the whole story, but I do know that this was definitely a big part of it, at least as it was presented to me by Dusty.
Yeah. And people leave and people come back. A lot fewer people leave and come back. That trail generally is worn out one direction, but he does have an interesting story and he believes it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wish him the best. Just letting you know, that was, I'm trying to tell the story in order to give you an impression of how explosive this was back in the 80s.
Yeah. Dean Jesse's work on the first vision and all that came with that. I mean, we can go back and go Paul Chessman and all the stuff there. But there are troublesome issues in Mormonism, folks, and some folks lose faith over them, and once in a while, one of them come back. So,
yeah, and I'm aware that this was first published in '65 and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but things come forward. It's like Pennywise out of the sewers in Derry, Maine, comes out every 27 years to eat kids, and in the meantime, it goes back to sleep. And that's kind of what happens with the 1832 account of the first vision. It comes out in 1965 and it eats some kids and it goes back to sleep for a while. And then the 80s, it gets another book and it's written about and it comes out and eats other kids, including Dusty Smith, my friend.
Yeah, and a whole host of other people, but Dusty was one of them.
We all float down here.
That's right.
So the next slide.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, do we have somebody in the studio, Bill?
It looks like Tim's down there.
Tim.
You want to come up here? There's Tim.
I'll bet you knew Dean Jesse.
I did. I had 2 classes with Dean and editing historical documents and then a church history class. But I talked to him a lot. Oh man, I'm sad now. Dean's the one that told me that when the church history library opened, there's a, I don't know if it's still there, but there's a book that's supposedly the first diary of Joseph Smith. He told me that was a facsimile. I'll never forget that. Anyway, he was a beautiful man. He had a big family. He's the one that told me about Spencer Kimball asking him to try to get the seer stone to work. Yeah.
I know you're sad because we lost him. I'm laughing because a modern day LDS prophet somehow still kind of thought he was a prophet. And
exactly,
if he could get that rock to work and didn't realize that, this is all not real, and I can't actually do these things.
And the irony being, at least doubled by the fact it's the prophet who's asking the historian where the on switch is.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And
But yeah, Dean has played a major role in Mormon history, and folks should know who he is. And whether you're a believer or you're a critic of the church, you should appreciate all the work that Dean Jesse's done.
Would
yeah,
you say it was fair, Tim, to say that he's in some sense the father of the Joseph Smith Papers project?
well, yes, he did. He talked to us about it all the time in class. He did personal writings, and then was going to do a 2 or 3 volume series with the diaries. And I think they published 2 that was supposed to be the beginning, but they wouldn't publish the 3rd because it dealt with polygamy and polyandry. And so they shut it down. And that was in the late 80s, early 90s when those 2 volumes came out.
Wow.
And then later on, when they did what we now know as the Joseph Smith Papers Project, that he used the Thomas Jefferson Papers as a model for that, for what he wanted to do. Yeah. Just a lovely man, just guileless, and I always enjoyed talking to Dean. He told me a lot of things. So just want to pay my tribute to him.
Well, thank you, Tim. I think you've done so eloquently.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care. Wow.
Yeah. And by the way, that says a lot, right? Like, here's Tim. Tim knows the church is bunk. Dean Jesse's on the inside. He's a believer. They both love Mormon history. And so they have a connection that is beyond whether one believes or doesn't believe. It's an appreciation of Mormon history. And so Tim feeling a little emotional. I just think it's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see, when I pass away, who on the other side is really going to go, that person made a difference. And I'm sad that we lost Bill Reel, right?
I'll say that.
Yeah. But I mean, on the believing side.
Oh,
and, but yet Dean Jesse, a believer, has passed away. And there are folks on this side who deeply appreciate what he gave, what he did, what he accomplished, and the prominence he gave Mormon history.
yeah. That's quite a salute.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I'm adding this back to the stage now.
yeah.
Going now to the next slide. Oh, wait a second here. These are some comments. I've collected some comments. I don't think we got to any comments last week. Did we, Bill?
I don't think so.
So let's see if we are moved down to, hang on just a second here. Down here. Maybe I can read this. So this looks like a newscast. Rebecca's there with you and I. And let me see here. Oh, yes. This was very interesting. Remember, we had not actually covered that story because we have too many stories to cover, but the one about the Mormon mom / wife who left with I think it was Utah, and left her husband and left with her kids and fled to Europe or something. And that was a story. Do you remember that, Bill?
Yeah, I do. I remember the mom, the dad had custody or whatever, and the mom essentially kidnaps her own child and runs away from town. She skips town.
Well, this person, no Leyi, 3477. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but that's about as big as I can get, and I apologize. I'm asking podcasters and independent creators to briefly mention the ongoing search for Elisha Annie Seymour, a mother of 4 who left the United States with her children after coming to believe. And I thought, that's a story that we almost covered, but we didn't, and maybe we should. And then this interesting way she ends it, after coming to believe. And then she continues, she or he continues, to believe the end times are imminent. This is about awareness and safety, not speculation or entertainment. So I don't know who this person is who posted this or the basis for their their knowledge about what they're claiming. But that would certainly make it, I think, of more interest to a Mormon audience if she's fleeing with kids because end times are imminent. In other words, it would sound like another one of these episodes of Kingdoms of Glory. Is that what the book's called?
Visions of Glory.
Thank you. Visions of Glory. I knew I had it just a little bit wrong. Visions of Glory. Yeah.
John Pontius or something like that.
Yeah, because Mormons are starting to go crazy on this end time stuff.
That book's been popular for a long time, but there are these resurgences, and I think we're in one of those. And again, Mormonism's feeding it because you have these podcasters in the church, mainstream believers, who are just focusing on the second coming. And when you get everybody worked up about the second coming, you're going to cause them to go chase down books and blogs and podcasts that are about that topic. And so you're driving that group of people to the extremes.
And why does she have to leave her husband and take the kids? Presumably because he wasn't going along with it. He didn't believe that she was right.
Yeah. And whether it's the Daybells, I think Tim Ballard plays into some of this. There are Julie Rowe was another one that kind of plays into some of this. I mean, I had people come into the pawn shop that were followers of Julie Rowe, and they wanted to buy thousands of dollars of silver because, the world was coming to an end immediately.
Yeah. Currency will just be paper.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a crazy thing.
So if anybody knows any more about that, if you want to get a hold of Bill or, come on the show, if you happen to know more about this and you're watching this live, that would be of interest. Oh, here was Russell McGregor. He showed up on my Facebook page when I was advertising something or other. Oh, it was our show. Remember the one on Mormonism Live about
Smith's father?
Yes, exactly. The one, what do you call it? The interview from 1870.
Yep.
It was published. We did the whole show on it, and that was your research. And before it had aired, Russell McGregor, who is like a blast from the past, he used to go by the name Pahoran on the message boards. He's just he is an apologist's apologist, and I mean that in the worst way possible. He says there's a reason why the tales of the Palmyra gossips faded into obscurity. And it's not because they were such splendid sources, but given that everything about you lot is a lie, starting with your name, I really don't expect you to care. See?
Yeah, I love your response.
What did I say? I said, oh, we trust Joseph's dad more than you do, Pahoran. Ha ha.
Yeah.
That's funny. And then he gives me this really, really long response, okay? Which starts with, oh, you trust him, do you? Glad to hear it. This is just quintessential Pahoran. Oh, you trust him, do you? Glad to hear it. Can you read this for Bill?
Yeah.
As mockingly as you can now.
Oh, you trust him, do you? Glad to hear
just like your Michael Balaam playing Satan.
Yeah. So you trust his declaration that he saw and handled the golden plates and that they were physically real? Or is it that when you claim to trust Joseph's dad, you're merely posturing? Do you really mean that you trust your fellow anti-Mormons' claims about what Joseph's dad said, made decades after Joseph's dad was safely out of the way and unavailable to correct the record? Because as you and I both know, you are not in any regard trusting Joseph's dad. You are trusting Palmyra's gossip, highly improbable claim to remember in detail a long conversation from 40 years ago. And why do you trust it? Because it tells you what you want to hear, of course.
And then I responded, what did I say? I said, I didn't say I trust Joseph Smith's dad. I said I trust him more than you do. Try to keep up.
Can I just say here, by the way, this is the difference between a believer working out of confirmation bias and you and me working to try to figure out what the truth is. When we examine Joseph Smith's interview, I don't trust it because it's critical of the church. I trust it because at 12 different places in the interview, what he says, what was it Lapham says about Joseph Smith Sr. is shown to be at least accurate in the sense that there is a multitude of other sources outside of Lapham that are also saying the exact same data point.
Yes.
That's why I trust it.
Yes, that we're much closer in time.
Yeah. I trust it because it seems to be an accurate remembrance, for the most part, about what Joseph Smith Sr. said to him.
Right. And of course, Russell McGregor is writing all this without ever having listened to it because it hadn't even aired yet. And he's going off like this, confident in his ignorance.
I'd love to know how many times he has come across history, scholarship, and Mormonism and admitted at the end, like, oh man, I think that goes the critic's way. Because you and I have done it so many times at this point. You just did it recently where you talked about, you had heard these rumors about the Book of Mormon being altered for Africa, for the African saints, and indicating to them that it was trying to get away from the curse, the black skin curse, and it was changing the wording. And you were like, man, if that's true, that needs to be talked about. And you went and you looked it up, you did the research.
I'll tell you, if it had been true, it would have been a much more popular podcast than it turned out to be.
Yeah. And again, I always go back to the tar and feathering of Joseph Smith. That's an obvious one. Just recently, somebody was posting on TikTok that Joseph Smith, the tar and feathering occurred because he was pursuing girls in the Kirtland area. And I go onto the TikTok and I comment, I say, look, I'd love nothing more than this to be the conclusion, but you might want to listen to this podcast. It just doesn't turn out to be, I'm not going to say not true.
Most likely.
True or untrue is, you're right, is based on facts, but the evidence indicates that it's unlikely.
Right.
Yeah.
And similarly, if this 1870 recollection of an interview had 40 years or 30 years before, 1870, 40 years. Yeah, 40 years before, was the only place these facts showed up anywhere as allegations in the historical record, then of course you wouldn't believe it.
No.
But when they match up time after time after time on even specific unusual points with much earlier separate statements by other witnesses, then you got to say, wait a second, maybe this is more accurate than Pehorin would think.
Yeah. And one example, and there were a bunch of them, but one example is that Lapham remembers Joseph Smith Sr. recounting that the angel Moroni, or what's supposed to be the angel Moroni, which it turns out in this story is a treasure guardian, has bloody clothes and has blood on him. And then we go find out that Heel Lewis and his brother also record that this angel Moroni has blood on him and he's has his throat slit from ear to ear. And again, there's a dozen of these instances in that interview where you're like, okay, that's interesting. And another person says something exactly the same or super similar way off over here in a conversation that Lapham almost certainly would not have had awareness of.
Yeah. And so, of course, he doesn't know that while he's pontificating, and I know it, and you know it. And I'm just going, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And as soon as this show goes up, everybody will see it. Or I should say, we'll see it.
Critical thinking is a difficult thing, I think, for most of the population. And we all have these mechanisms in our brain that draw us towards emotional beliefs. And when our identity is tied to a thing, we want so bad for that thing to be true because that says something about us. We don't want to be the stupid fool. We don't want to be the village idiot who couldn't figure shit out. We want to be on the right side of things. And there's so much risk. If Mormonism falls apart for a person who believes it intensely, there's so much risk about your identity unraveling, your community breaking up, and you having to figure out who you are and what you are now. The brain does not want to go through that. It will fight kicking and scratching not to have to deal with that.
It's probably one of the reasons it's so traumatic.
Yeah.
We fight it so hard. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Oh, those are a few more things. Oh, yes. Lucifer's lantern. Okay, Lucifer's. I tell you something. You should have what's in this drink.
I've got my own, and I filled it all the way to the top tonight. So
we'll try this again. The sad thing is I'm actually sober. The Peacemaker. This is Lucifer's Lantern. Not the easiest title to say. Lucifer's Lantern. Published an article on the blog. It's talking about the Peacemaker Summit and an attempt to silence Mormonism's critics. Well, that's us, Bill. This was published January 12th, 2026 by Mason. And let me take this down from here. And let me bring this up here, because this is actually where this is. So it says, let's see if we can read this. The Peacemaker Summit and an attempt to silence Mormonism's critics. An upcoming event called the Peacemaker Summit, organized by the Holy Rebellion, is being promoted as a gathering for faithful LDS creators. The organizing vision for this event is explicitly about displacing critics of the faith by flooding social media platforms with coordinated, high-volume, pro-Mormon content. That goal deserves scrutiny. It says, can you see this, Bill? Can you read this next one if you can? And actually, I can make it a little bit bigger, I think, now that you taught me how.
Yeah, the stated aim, outnumber the critics. By the way,
can you still see it?
This is such a strange thing because I've never really thought this way. And I know why I haven't thought this way. There's something dishonest and unethical about this. So if you'll scroll up just the tiniest bit. All right. So the stated aim, outnumber the critics. I've never thought that. Let's outnumber the apologist. I just said, let's just tell the truth. Travis Lish and Christian Williams from the Holy Rebellion have been clear about their motivation. They believe the critics of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, God, that's a mouthful, dominate online spaces, and the faithful voices need to overwhelm that presence. The solution being proposed is to create enough volume to hide criticisms from search results. Why not tell the fucking truth? Like,
isn't that amazing? By the way, we'll be reporting more on this on Monday. So let this be a tease. But this is what's going on. They are having meetings at coordinated high levels as far as podcasts go, I guess, about how to flood the internet with pro-Mormon content and volumes. What's important, not quality. God knows we've seen that already. So it's the volume that's important, not the quality. And therefore, the idea is that if you're subscribed, by the way, this is a good reason to subscribe right now to this show, Mormonism After Dark, as well as to all the fine and wonderful quality shows you'll find under the Mormon Discussions podcast umbrella. Isn't that right, Bill?
It is. You'll get all of the content that we produce, notifications about it all. And there's lots of interesting stuff in various places, including the newscast, Radio Free Mormon, Mormonism Live, Mormonism After Dark.
And so what they're trying to do, of course, is to make it not so, I mean, if you know us, you know to tune in and you can look us up and we'll probably be in your feed on a regular basis and you'll get the little bell when a new podcast is coming out. But for people who don't and who are just going to the internet for the first time to find out about Mormonism and Googling in some search terms like what is the Mormon Church about in YouTube, their goal then is to have the entire first page at least be pro-Mormon content so that the other side never gets heard. Now, I got to tell you, this is really one of the most Mormon things I've ever heard of in my life, because that's what the Mormon Church wants. Think about it. All they're saying, and this is as fairly stated as I possibly can put it, what these podcasters are doing, okay, and what the church does. I mean, come on. What the church and these podcasters want to do is they want to flood or drown out the voices on the other side of the issue. And they want to make it so that people who are trying to look up Mormonism and find out about it will only find out about the faithful side of the issue and will never be able to encounter or make it harder for them to encounter the other side of the issue. And that is Mormonism in a nutshell.
I have never wanted to do that. I have always said, I want you to have all the information. I want you to have both sides. I actually think it works in favor of my argument if you have the believing approach to an issue and you have the critical approach to the issue. And both of them walk their logic out all the way. Show the documents, let people read the things, let people figure out how things, each step along the way in the chronology. And I've never even thought in my head I didn't want Fair Mormon to be viewed. I want Fair Mormon to be viewed. And I want you to go listen to the same content on the same issue from Mormonism Live's perspective. And the idea that they want to hide the critics, I think their zealousness has gotten in the way of them realizing that they're actually self-admitting they have the weaker argument.
Yes. What does it say when you're making it obviously you're working hard and trying to get other people to work hard in order to accomplish what goal? Making it so the other side of an argument doesn't get to be heard.
Wouldn't it be amazing if just the Holy Ghost worked? If you could just read both sides of an issue and go, "Dear Heavenly Father, please help me know which one is true." And then the Holy Ghost would come upon you and tell you by the truth of these things may be manifested. I might know the truth of these things, is what Moroni said. It is by the power of the Holy Ghost that you may know the truth of these things. Does it work or doesn't it? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you need to hide the critic, it doesn't work. I don't know.
Yes. I think that's a big story.
Yeah, well, there's that. So the apologists are now trying to flood the internet with positive material so that they can hide the critic, because we can't even afford to have the critic be seen and heard and read and understood. What the hell would happen if we allowed that?
Well, nothing good, apparently.
Yeah, nothing good.
Oh, this is me. This is tomorrow. I'm really excited about this. The thumbnail, it's called Built by Aliens, talking about the pyramids, which are pictured there. There's a reference to the Book of Mormon as well. And it has to do with an encounter I had 2 months ago with a gentleman in Texas who told me, seemingly out of the blue, his sincere belief that aliens built the pyramids. And I was trying not to make a bad impression, not to be offensive. Believe it or not, that can happen with me from time to time. And I was trying to feel him out as to whether he were actually kidding me or sincere. And he started talking about how, well, people back then, they couldn't build the pyramids. They didn't have the technology. They couldn't have done that. Therefore, it had to be aliens. And in the past 2 months, that conversation has set off a string of thoughts in my mind that end up giving the silver bullet to anybody who wants to listen to this podcast, which should premiere tomorrow at 7:00 p.m. Mountain Time. The silver bullet to basically pretty much the vast majority of arguments made by Mormon apologists. This is something where you don't have to know a lot about the subject. This silver bullet will work in a variety of circumstances.
It is a strange thing, the way that people make arguments for conspiracy theories. We didn't land on the moon. And so when you look at the evidence that side presents that we didn't land on the moon, there are certain things they argue for that have been dispelled. There are good, solid, intellectual reasons for why the evidence shows up the way it does.
There's no wind on the moon, Bill. How could that flag be fluttering in the breeze?
Yeah, how could that happen? And how could there be a shadow here and a shadow there? Like, how could that happen? As you examine the pyramids being built, I mean, all these folks do is they find a weird drawing, a petroglyph of sorts, and they find some weird character drawn out and or some little piece over here, a piece over there. And so then you're like, well, that looks like that could be an alien. And next thing you know, you've decided it's built by aliens. And now all the evidence fits that point of view.
You are off and running.
Yeah.
You know something? I talked a little bit because I did the slides today.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this and thinking about it. And a lot of times I make it harder on myself by not writing ideas down. I just put them out in my head. And then I made the slides, and the slides were basically throwing out everything that I had in a certain order and then restructuring it and getting pictures and coming up with new ideas, blah, blah, blah. But back when I was in junior high school, Chariots of the Gods was a huge, huge deal. And those who know about it know what I'm talking about, which was a book written by Eric von Daniken, who theorized basically that everything in the ancient history was done by aliens. Everything that looked like it was too tough for mankind to do back then, it was done by aliens. And it had an enormous influence. It was a huge bestseller. It was the kind of thing that could only go over big in the early 70s. Is that true? I wonder. But it certainly did. And I was shocked. I went to go find a picture of him for a slide. He has passed away now, 6 days ago.
Mm.
So tomorrow, when I record this in the morning for premiere tomorrow night, it'll be 1 week since he passed away. And I thought he lived to be, I think it was 90 years old. So good for him. He certainly he made a contribution to the culture, if not to science.
Yeah. People are always trying to figure out how the world works and how the universe was created and how science works the way it does. And anytime you can't figure out the answer, the go-to is always some sort of supernatural thing is at work.
Mhm.
And when we go back in time far enough, let's go back 1,000 years, and we enter at some point an age of history being well written down, recorded. There have been so many things that we have posited were caused by some supernatural force, either God or aliens or something. And inevitably, 95% of the things that we used to attribute to those, we've come up with better explanations for. And so it's always, like you pointed out earlier, it's when we don't have an explanation for something that our brain tries to create some magic, unknown, mysterious thing that's the cause of it. And if we knew everything, we would understand the explanation. And as we humans have learned more things, we have, again, I go back to them thinking the sun is rotating around the earth, certain ideas around space.
Yes.
And the moment we are able to see and plot out what's really going on, suddenly all of that has to fall away and religion has to adapt. The Catholic Church has to shift and move. And that's just the way it works. The more we learn, the more we get rid of magical thinking.
I mentioned this when I was describing the concept in the show to my daughter earlier before this show, but the idea came to me, and I hope I don't forget it tomorrow, so I'll say it tonight, is that when we do have this reaction, and I've certainly had it before, is that something that I don't understand, and you get the creepy feeling, and you start thinking, ooh, and supernatural, and what's going on here, and ghosts and spooks and things like that. What I'm actually saying is, first off, we understand that what I'm saying is, because I don't understand what it is, therefore there's a gap there that I'm going to substitute something in, something supernatural, something not natural, because I can't understand it based on any natural kind of explanation. Okay. Now, what that means is that as soon as you go there, I think what it means is that not only do you not understand what happened, you firmly believe and are committed to the proposition that nobody else in the entire world could figure it out either.
Yeah, because it's a mystery to you. It must be a mystery to everyone.
Yes. If any one of the, was it 8 billion people on this planet now, this poor, weighed down, heavy planet, 8 billion people on it,
Yeah.
and not one of them could figure this thing out, okay? Yeah, if one of them can figure it out, that means you don't have to go supernatural. And actually, even if none of them can figure it out, you don't have to go supernatural. You could just go to a place of I guess I don't know.
And inevitably, we will know more in the future than we know today. So even if no one on the planet today knows how something works, it's been shown a million times over that eventually someone figures out a thing. And when they figure it out, it's never supernatural, magical thinking that's causing the thing to happen.
Yeah, that seems to go the opposite way. By the way, I'm going to make it clear tomorrow, and I want to make it clear now. I'm not arguing that God does not exist. Okay. I'm not making that argument. All I'm saying is that there's a certain kind of argument, which some people call God of the gaps. There's a certain kind of argument that is itself a logical fallacy, and that's what we're talking about tonight. And the fun part comes when I get to apply it to Mormonism and the apologists. But you're going to have to watch the show tomorrow to hear more. Yeah. Oh, there's a Brody Award-winning rando in the green room, apparently. Hey, Mormons, what the? Hang on a second here. You'll have to wait in the green room. Mormon Stories with the green orange symbol donates $49.99. Bill and RFM rule, but mostly RFM. Yes. And also Bill with 3 exclamation points, but not the rando. Well, randos do not rule, apparently, except at the Brody Awards, where you got a couple of awards yourself, didn't you?
I just forgot to change my name from Wednesday's show. The fallacy,
right, he forgot.
The fallacy you guys are talking about right there is called the fallacy, or the argument from personal incredulity. I do not understand this thing, therefore no one can understand this thing, is the pattern of the thought there.
Isn't that amazing? Because it's so common, and I've done it before, and God knows I'll probably do it again. But to catch yourself and to just go, wait a second, what I'm actually saying here is not only do I not understand what's going on, nobody could ever understand it. It's unknowable.
Yeah, exactly. It's very related to the Dunning-Kruger effect, I would say.
The Dunning-Kruger effect, the idea that people generally think they're smarter than they are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a curve with that, right? Like there's a curve, like I don't know shit, but I think I know shit. And there comes a point where you learn a thing and then you go like, oh, there's a lot more to learn about this thing than I know. And the easiest example of the Dunning-Kruger effect is when you would go on and watch, it's
Jonah Barnes, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Jonah Barnes. But I was thinking like either not America's Got Talent, maybe it was the X Factor. And people would come on and they would go, my mom says I'm really good at singing. I sing in the shower. It's amazing. My mom says I'm really good. My 2 friends say I'm really good. They said I should come on the show and do that. And so the person comes on, they sing the song, and everybody in the crowd is like, oh my God, that's atrocious. It's because you had this limited amount of feedback, and the sample size of 3 gave you positive affirmation. You didn't doubt their motivation for doing that, and you thought you knew a thing. It happens in apologetics so much, where Jonah Barnes, you're right. People like Jonah Barnes think they know. I remember one time, I've told this story before, on the Mormon Dialogue and Discussion Board, and somebody was raising questions about the Book of Abraham, and I came on, and I was early on in my time trying to be an apologist, and I tried to explain to the person asking questions. I tried to say like, hey, you're wrong, buddy. Here's how the Book of Abraham solves itself. And next thing I know, I get a private message from Wade England, who is a nasty, scrappy apologist.
Thanks, Wade.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. So Wade private messages me and goes, kid, you don't know what you don't know. And this is a lot more complicated issue than you think, than you know it is. So your best thing to do would be just to step aside and stay out of this one. And I remember going like, which actually was great, because for me, what that said is, oh, you need to go read some more. This is way more problematic than what the apologetics originally told you. And that just sent me down the rabbit hole of the Book of Abraham even further, which was great.
That is interesting. I say thanks, Wade, because that's how he ends all of his messages.
Yeah, thanks, Wade.
The other example I had in mind, and this is why I hopped on to share with you, is RFM, you and I had done a debunking of Nahum apologetics in the Light and Truth Letter series.
Yes.
And I think earlier today, Stephen Murphy, Mormonism with the Murph, hosted Neil Rapley on responding in part to some of the arguments we made, some arguments that Dan Vogel made. And, it seems like Neil, for the most part, does do some actual legitimate scholarship as a researcher, a senior researcher, sorry.
Where's he
still
a
wondering
senior
how you
researcher?
still wondering how you get that title.
He's relegated to writing articles for The Interpreter. I mean, how much lower can you go?
So one of the things, I'm laughing because I'm getting private messages from John DeLynn that I want to share, but I can't.
Really? Are they salacious? Puerile?
No, I'll tell you about them tomorrow. Or we're not recording tomorrow. I'll tell you about them the next time I see you. Okay. My point about Nahum is sometimes these apologists get so silly with some of this stuff. I don't think they realize, like, one of the things we talked about in the Nahum episode is the possibility that Joseph Smith may have learned about the name Nahum from certain maps that had been publicized before he had written the Book of Mormon.
Yes.
And it's funny to me that apologists will act like, well, yeah, but how likely is it that Joseph would have traveled, whatever it is? Say it's 400 miles.
Not likely at all. It's much more likely that.
Yeah, say it's 1,000 miles. It is so much more likely that Joseph Smith traveled 1,000 miles than that a resurrected being brought to him golden plates written in a language that never existed, hidden in a place where no one can locate exactly where this stone box was hidden. It's just when you start thinking about some of the assumptions stacked on top of each other, it just becomes so ridiculous when they respond to critical arguments that way. Well, how likely is it that Joseph Smith traveled 100 miles to go see this book? It's like, well, it's a hell of a lot more likely than that he, spoke with a resurrected ancient American Jew.
A Hebrew Jew. Do you know that does Neil recognize, has he realized yet that he's arguing for the authenticity of a story about a handful of Jews who came over to the Americas 600 years before Christ, became a massive civilization with huge cities, warfare, culture, and over 1,000 years, and left not a trace behind, not even DNA.
Built a small family building a ship on the Arabian Peninsula that was ocean bound. The Jaredites building barges, and what does it take to upkeep the animals and to store the honeybees, and then you've got like the Book of Mormon. You have to go off all these tangents. It's Moroni says it is a book of gold or a gold book, but it's not gold. It's Tambaga because gold would be too heavy. Like there's 1,000 tangents around every one of those issues. That even if you just say the simplified version, it's still more rational that Joseph Smith walked 100 miles. Yeah,
it's more likely
that he circumnavigated the globe in the spirit of St. Louis.
Or that he had it revealed to him by aliens. At least that's a naturalistic explanation. Another worldly one.
That's the funny thing. That's what I've got to say tomorrow in my show, right? Which is, aliens built the pyramids, because I guess it sounds more scientific than saying God did it.
Yep.
Anyways, I'll let you guys go. I liked what you guys were talking about with the critical thinking stuff. As RFM, well, as both of you know, that's something that definitely was critical in changing my opinion during my faith crisis, was thinking about how flawed my epistemology was as a Mormon.
Yeah. Well, another thought that comes to me is no human being would build pyramids like this.
Yeah. Except for the ones who did.
Yep. Hey, Rando, Colby, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Have a good night, guys.
Hey, congrats on your Brodies. I mean that. Like that was such a cool thing that these episodes that you and RFM did together are what people saw as noteworthy and went over to the Brody Awards and nominated and voted for. And so kudos to you for being part of a project that impacted people to that degree. So great job, Kobe.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
That's very nice.
See you later.
Yep, take it easy. Bye-bye. Colby has Brodies as big as bowling balls.
A rando with balls the size of grapefruits.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, let's see what else is going on. Oh, I think there's something huge that's going on with you. Is that next? Go ahead.
yeah. So this
Look at
is,
this.
yeah. So Brittany Hartley, who was my co-host for 2 or 3 years on the Almost Awakened podcast, and she was becoming really big on TikTok with her no nonsense spirituality. And so eventually she reached out to me and said, "Hey, Bill, no negative feelings. I love you to death and love the work we do, but I'm going to step away from the Almost Awakened podcast and go work on my TikTok channel," because TikTok reached out to her and offered her a monetization program where she would start off, I'm going to guess, $20,000 a year, $25,000 a year, somewhere in there. And it was more than we were able to pay her for the Almost Awakened podcast, because that was only getting 1,500 views an episode. And so she went off and she did that and became really big, not only on TikTok, but she started a YouTube channel. She wrote a book, No Nonsense Spirituality, that's done really well. It's been a #1 seller on Amazon. And so she's a big deal. She's become a big deal. And Rainn Wilson, if you recognize the face, he is the actor who played Dwight Schrute on The Office. He has a podcast called Soul Boom. And about, 8 months ago, 7 months ago, he interviews Britt Hartley around because of her book, and has a really great interview where her and him go back and forth talking about spirituality. And so Britt reached out to him to see if he would do an interview this direction, and he was more than happy to. So Monday morning, I and Britt Hartley, so Britt came to me a couple of months ago and says, "Hey, would you like to start podcasting again? I'd really like to start doing some joint collaborative work." And we've recorded one already. If you go on to our YouTube channel and look up Exploring the Edges, that's the name of the series. So Exploring the Edges, you see it in the top right corner there. And Britt and I have just a really great conversation. It lasts an hour and a half, and we go off into lots of different tangents. And that was sort of like a test pilot. She put that on her podcast channel, got tons of positive comments. And so now going forward, her and I are going to start podcasting again. And now that she's a big deal, she has the ability to get an in with people who are very well known. And so this Monday, we will sit down with Rainn Wilson, Dwight Schrute from The Office, and we will talk about his journey, his spiritual journey around deconstructing religious ideas and where he's landed and how that all went. And I think it'll be a marvelous conversation for our audience of the channel here that we put stuff on, Mormon Discussion. And there'll be future episodes as well with other well-known voices, because Britt, because of her book, now has the ability to secure folks that normally in this little niche we wouldn't have access to. So this is a really cool moment. So Monday in the morning, we'll record it. I'm imagining maybe 3 or 4 days later, you should see this come out on our channel. An interview with Rainn Wilson, the actor that played Dwight Schrute on The Office, and talking about his spirituality and his podcast, Soul Boom.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, this will be cool.
So you're recording it on Monday, but it should come out sometime later next week.
Yeah, I'm thinking Thursday or so it should come out.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
That should be great. Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, here's a picture of Seattle that I did not take. I think this was on the first day of the solstice or maybe the new year. Oh, I took this on the river, by the way. You see these logs? First off, you see these concrete pilings or pylons or whatever you want to call them there. See those two things that the logs are up on?
Yeah.
Those are there from prior structure, a prior revetment. These logs are normally floating on the river. So the river was up high enough that these logs raised with it. And then when the river went down, they happened to be positioned such that they were on top of these pylons.
Yeah, you had quite the flood, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting picture. It's since broken.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Oh, here's another comment. This is you. This is me. Oh, obviously, this is Mormonism After Dark. Look at how we are attired. There's a rando also with us. And somebody says, okay, I have to say, as a Nevermo, I really appreciate the hapless chap who wrote the Light on Truth letter, as RFM and Colby's analysis have been some of the most entertaining and interesting material of all 2025. So please, so pleased to hear there's still some more left for 2026.
You guys, we noted this in the Brody Awards. I spoke up and said, he should also get part of the Brodies. The fact that I was going to grab that.
I know I was so upset with you because you brought it up before I did, so I couldn't bring it up, and you robbed me of the chance to appear magnanimous.
Oh yeah, well, I'm so sorry. We didn't talk about it beforehand, and I just thought this guy wrote a idiotic apologetic approach that made it so easy for you guys to just laugh at him and point out the flaws in what he was doing. And so he should get some credit for just pitching you guys the easy to hit softball.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's like a rigged fight. He hit the mat in the first round.
Austin Fife. Oh, yeah.
By the way, it's not. We may make it look easy, but we work very hard on these, and I know you're not saying we didn't. I just want to make that clear. Yeah, it takes a lot of work, and actually, it ends up. Here's the thing: as an attorney, I think any attorney will tell you the same thing. When you're going against another attorney on the other side of a whatever case, that's one thing. But if you're going against somebody who is not represented by an attorney, that's when things are really, really difficult. All right. A lot of times people think, well, if you're an attorney, wouldn't you want someone who's not an attorney on the other side? It ends up being much more difficult dealing with somebody who's not an attorney. And I was making a point there about something. What was I talking about before, Bill?
Well, we were talking about Austin Fife's book being so.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Because it's so badly written. We have to reconjugate the entire syntax, and we have to try and figure out what the heck he's trying to talk about. And then we have to steelman it in order for us to begin to respond to it. It would save us a lot of work if he would just do a good job in the first place.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever learn what his creative process was, but it wasn't legitimate. And whatever it was a workaround.
Yeah.
And it shows.
He's a pretender.
He's a pretender.
And by the way, here's something I saw on the internet. I think it was last week. Now, this is Ward Radio, and here we have, it says Trump, Maduro, and something else, and Mormonism. Okay. Donald Trump arrests Maduro and what that means for us. And I thought, when it comes to Maduro being kidnapped and hoisted away from Venezuela and what that's going to mean for the United States, there's nobody I'd trust more to hear talk about this than Cardenellis. I want to know what Cardenellis thinks.
And how desperate are they for material? Somehow, the United States government flying into Venezuela in the dark of night, kidnapping the president of another country in his own home, not having a single soldier killed and not having a piece of technology damaged. What does that have to do with Mormonism?
I don't know. I think Maduro was, I think he took a few of the discussions once when he was in college.
Oh, my goodness.
I have no idea. I didn't watch it. I just saw this and I thought, you have got to be kidding me. I mean, I understood when he was talking about the Mormon church in Grand Blanc, Michigan getting shot up. Yeah, I totally got the connection and why he'd be talking about that. That made sense. This one lost me. And then there's this one that's going on over at Uninformed Saints. There's a new channel. It's got the Rapleys and it's got Stephen Bukakis Smoot. It's a threesome. And they go together by the name of Uninformed Saints. And they had an uninformed Egyptologist on named Carrie Muhlstein. And it's titled Egyptian Scholar Responds to TikTok. Egyptologist uncovers evidence for Book of Abraham. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing he finds evidence for the Book of Abraham when he's already told us, Carrie Muhlstein has, that that's what he starts off with. That's the conclusion he starts off with. Then he shoehorns all the evidence to fit his preordained conclusion.
Are you talking about this Carrie Muhlstein? Jehovah. Oh, that's not it. Let's try this one.
And so I start out with an assumption that the Book of Abraham and the Book of Mormon and anything else, excuse me, that we get from the restored gospel is true. Therefore, any evidence I find, I will try and fit into that paradigm. I don't.
So what he's telling me in that soundbite in here is that he found a piece of data and he fitted into his assumption that the Book of Mormon is true. So I can't really trust that this piece of evidence, when interpreted objectively, is actually evidence for the Book of Abraham.
By the way, it's different from what all of his other colleagues in the Egyptological field believe about it. Oh, except for one, who's also Mormon, whose name is John Gee, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just, we may end up, I don't know, Mormonism Live. We'll see if we do a review of this. The field is wide already to harvest when it comes to videos to respond to. But this is just absolutely ridiculous to me, that he's still being touted as anybody worth listening to. By the way, I'd like you to play this again, because notice what he's saying. He actually is trained enough to know that what he is saying is an abomination in the scholarly field. Or in anything, you don't start with your conclusion. Everybody knows that. You don't start with the conclusion and then try and shoehorn the evidence and make it fit your conclusion. That's what a dumbass does.
Don't feel that I need.
And he knows this, but he's talking to church people. And for whatever reason, he's going to say this dumbass statement. He can't quite get it out his windpipe, and it shuts down on him halfway through. Listen to it.
I have to chat here for about 7 seconds because the problem with the Roadcaster is, rather than starting the soundbite over, it just continues on from where you had it.
I see.
But I'm only just a few seconds away, so me rambling right now, telling you the problem, will now let it play.
He has a physical reaction you can hear.
Here it is. Yeah, this guy is supposed to do, again, I know he's an Egyptologist, but there's a science to it. And you are supposed to figure out where the evidence leads so that you can make the best, most rational, objective interpretations of the things you're learning about Egyptology. And he tells you, he says the quiet thing out loud and tells you that he is going to do anything but that.
And it almost kills him.
And so I start out with an assumption that the Book of Abraham and the Book of Mormon and anything else, excuse me, that we get from the restored gospel is true. Therefore, any evidence I find, I will try and fit into that paradigm. I don't feel that I need to defend that paradigm. I feel that I want to understand the evidence that I find within that paradigm, because to me it's a given that it's true. There are others who will assume that it's not true, and on these points we'll just have to agree to disagree, but we will understand one another better when we understand how our beginning assumptions color the way we filter all of the evidence that we find.
What a fucking moron.
Imagine if I said, I start with the assumption that the earth is flat. And I don't feel the need to argue that assumption or defend it, but I'm going to take every piece of evidence that I find and I'm going to try to fit it into my belief that the earth is flat.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we get to the end and you go, and I go, I'm a flat earther, and you go, no shit, Sherlock, you're a flat earther. You've taken the evidence and you fit it into your assumption because you've already acknowledged what the conclusion has to be and how all the evidence, no matter how it comes down, will fit into that.
Absolutely. And he has to say this lame ass thing about, I don't see any need to defend my dumbass paradigm. Yes, that's right. You know you can't defend it, because if you try to, you'd get your ass kicked, Carrie.
Yeah. Because
that is so lame. I see no need to defend it. Oh my gosh. Talk about just shifting out of the field of play, right? And saying, I'm not going to defend it. All I'm going to do is bastardize the degree I got from UCLA, in which Kara Cooney would like to have back, please.
How can you
and use that to support my religious belief that the Book of Abraham is true? Thank you, Bill.
How can you trust a person who tells you that they're going to take all the data they find and force it into their conclusion?
You can trust them. You can trust them to do one thing, which is arrive at the conclusion they started with.
Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yes. And those are his good points. So let's see what else is going on. Oh, yeah, there's some more stuff going on. Kolob and the Book of Abraham. Ancient Astronomy Explained. Uninformed Saints is back at it. The weirdest Book of Abraham detail might be it's what? I don't know. Super evidence? No, it's not. It's just amazing that they have to continue to make these. By the way, the silver bullet, which I will be disclosing on tomorrow night's Radio Free Mormon, will shoot this thing right in the heart. Even if it's a full moon, it will perish.
One has to wonder if this is that last slide, that is part of the effort to flood the internet with nonsensical, absurd, irrational, believing narratives and ideas in order to make it difficult to find the history done well by us, Dan Vogel, Mormon Stories having conversations around issues, LDS discussions. Again, they've admitted they're creating content so that we are just hard to find and maybe to some degree disappear.
Talk about your fake news. This is fake astronomy. Now, this is from a story where you remember Grand Blanc. I mentioned it earlier, the shooting at the church in Michigan, September, I think it was. Family shares miraculous story of survival in Michigan church shooting. I posted about this on Facebook, just saying, I don't think this would be a good fast and testimony story. Hey, look at us. God loved us enough. We survived.
Meanwhile, other people died.
Therefore, God must not have loved them as much as he loves us.
I went back and was listening to, I think it was an old newscast. And I think it was you that made the comment, but it was this idea that there was a story where a house burned down, old lady, 86 years old. She drops her cigarette or something. The entire house burns down. And what doesn't burn down is the Bible inside the drawer of the end table by the bed.
Right.
The bedside table. And so people are like, it's a miracle. The Bible survived. But to believe that, you have to go, yeah, but the old lady died in a fire. Her house is gone.
Oh, she died too?
She died.
Oh, my Lord.
Her house
were saying it was a miracle?
Yep. And the Bible survived. So it was a miracle. Okay. If you say so, nobody wants that Bible. It smells like smoke. It's going in the trash. The house is gone. The lady has died. There's nothing miraculous about this story.
Yes. It's like Bill Murray pulling the tablecloth and saying, the flowers are still standing. Because everything else is on the floor.
This guy's part of the miracle, huh?
You know, Ghostbusters, we can really learn a lot from that movie.
We could.
I think it has a lot of meaning.
Yeah.
I guess this guy got shot or something bad happened to him, but he survived. And so, so KSL is reporting this as a miracle story, as KSL is wont to do. I'm going to come back to that later. This is something that Kolsch had made, and I just loved it because it dunks on Jacob Hansen so spectacularly. Have you seen this, Bill?
I've seen this about 3 times already, and it's still funny.
It says, Mormons, why won't outsiders take us seriously? Also Mormons, Jacob Hansen. Okay, I guess that would be one of the reasons that people don't take Mormons seriously. Jacob Hansen. Oh, and Jacob Hansen, let me see. This was, this is me dogging him because, he puts out these episodes from time to time with some regularity. And if I see that he's put one out, I'll go into the comment section and call him a chicken shit for dodging the Colby debate. Yeah. Because I want to make sure everybody knows it. And this is one where can you read this one?
Sure can. This is from Radio Free Mormon.
To Jacob Hansen. Love Radio Free Mormon.
You are a chicken shit, Jacob Hansen. You can't run away fast enough from debating the Book of Mormon with Kobe Reddish. You are an absolute joke with laughy teary emoji.
And by the way, I can't do this with an emoji, so I'll do it here. Jacob, rock, rock, rock. You are a chicken shit. So let's see. Was this another one? Oh, this is somebody. Hang on. Okay. This is Jacob Coming back. Okay. He had some kind of debate, which he's milking for all it's worth about something about the apostasy. He's made like several videos accusing the other side of doing him dirty, which lets me know he got, crucified, and appropriately so, during the actual debate. So this is where he's coming on with the 12-minute video subsequent to that. And somebody makes this comment: Jacob making a 12-minute video of pure cope because he's too chicken shit to follow through with his agreement to talk to Colby Reddish is chef's kiss. Yes, I didn't write that, but it's good to see the sentiment being repeated. And then somebody responded to this person, said, nobody knows who that is. And then Radio Free Mormon says, then why is Jacob scared shitless of him? Laughy face.
If you know you have the answers, why be afraid?
Yeah.
Why not just answer the questions? Why not go on and tackle the problems and show the world that you can solve the conundrums of Mormonism? Why not?
And cut the Gordian knot with truth, diamond truth, and God is my right-hand man. Oh, here's another one. Let's see. This is what is that? Is it, hang on a second. Can we let's see. We go down here, it's GJR-DFW. Oh, I thought this was funny because this is apparently a born-again Christian who found their way into the live chat, saying Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. And what better, that's quoting 2 Corinthians 11:14. And what better prospect for possession than a gullible rock-reading teen, Joseph Smith Jr.? His fate was set! Exclamation point. Tax Shooter responds, 2 Corinthians 11:14 reminds me of the false apostle, Saul of Tarsus, on the road to Damascus. I thought that was chef's kiss, because you're taking the test that Paul allegedly, and I think scholars would agree, wrote 2 Corinthians 11, and then showing how it disqualifies Saul or Paul himself with his own conversion story, if you're going to interpret it as strictly as our evangelical friend does.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. I like that. Some guy out there says this. Can you read this one, Bill?
I'm really glad that I spent so much time as a kid worrying about having to remember if I should shake a ghost hand or not. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, bud.
Can you imagine being a kid? I mean, I was not a member of the church until I was 18, but growing up, I'm worried about weird things happening. Creatures from another dimension coming through the mirror above my bureau. Does that happen? Could it be? It does on TV, so I don't know. I have no idea what the limits of reality are. And I didn't know what could happen, but I was aware that a lot more could happen, and ghosts could appear, creatures could appear at night, and I was concerned about them. So all I'm saying is I wasn't even a Mormon, but as Mormons, you have it almost as a tenet of your faith that can happen at any given time. And you got to remember, do I shake the hand? Do I not shake the hand? What happens if I feel the hand? What if he doesn't shake hands with me? It's very confusing. Fortunately, it's an open book test, and you can open to your Doctrine and Covenants.
There are so many moments like this in Mormonism. Another example is it the priest of Noah, King Noah? And they end up, somebody like rapes a Lamanite daughter. And it essentially says that when she was raped, she lost her virtue in the Book of Mormon.
I think it's more, it's generic. It's more toward the end when these things are happening. And go ahead. I don't think it's as early as Noah, is all I'm saying.
Mormonism had this teaching, and recently they've tried, at least in some places, to abandon it. It was in like the Young Women's Manual, and it ended up being taken out. But I'll just note that when you teach certain kinds of things, you teach handshakes to spirits, you teach that rape ends up with the victim having lost their virtue, you end up scaring the hell out of kids. It's better that one nation should perish than or one person should perish and a whole nation dwindle in unbelief. And so you raise kids in the gospel of Jesus Christ to think God might tell you to cut off the head of someone. You're constantly having to think about things that no normal person should have to think about. No one should have to think, if I'm raped, does that mean I sinned? And again, we had it was an apostle. His first name was Richard. Back in the 80s, 90s. Tall guy. Anyway, he taught that it was partially the victim's fault when a sexual assault occurred. And so not only do you have the Book of Mormon saying that when you're raped, the victim loses their virtue, but you also have prophets, seers, and revelators in the modern day reiterating the teaching.
Richard
G. Scott. You have Marion G. Romney and then Bruce R. McConkie reiterating it, that it's better to come home in a coffin than having lost your virtue on your mission.
Yes.
There are all these teachings in Mormonism, and Mormon leaders will never stand up and go, hey, everyone, today's the day. We're just going to acknowledge that was so unhealthy and wrong, and don't ever repeat it again. Instead, we make it disappear. We sweep it under the rug. We don't talk about it. And then what happens is people for generations more still perpetuate the thing, but the leaders get to go, well, we didn't teach it this generation. Well, you didn't denounce it either. And other people are still perpetuating it. And so you're not doing your job.
That verse is in Moroni chapter 9, verse 9. So second to last chapter in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. Read it. Do you mind? It's just like one sentence, isn't it?
No, and it was reversed. It's the Nephites doing it. And notwithstanding this great abomination of the Lamanites, it doth not exceed that of our people in Moriantum. For behold, many of the daughters of the Lamanites have they taken prisoners, and after depriving them of that which was most dear and precious above all things, which is chastity and virtue. And after they had done this thing, they murdered them.
Yeah. You get raped and you lose your chastity. You're no longer a chaste person, and you're no longer virtuous because you're a victim of sexual assault. Crazy.
Well, I mean, certainly by today's standards. I think it represents the Victorian standards that the Book of Mormon was produced in. And I think probably goes way back before that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but Mormonism imposes it as God's standard. These are teachings of Jesus Christ by his servants written on gold plates, where the writing was so difficult and the space was so scarce that only the most precious of things were written down.
That's why all those chapters of Isaiah.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice how they write all those chapters of Isaiah down in the Book of Mormon, so we'd have them today, even though we have them in the Bible. But when it came to the Book of Revelation and First Nephi, we don't write. He didn't write those down in the Book of Mormon because he said those will be written in the Book of Revelation, and you'll have it.
Yeah, it wasn't worth rewriting the Book of Lehi, but it was okay duplicating Isaiah.
Right, and so I'm saying. Duplicate Isaiah, but don't duplicate Revelation.
Yeah.
So you duplicate Isaiah, even though we'll have Isaiah in our Bible, but you don't duplicate Revelation because we'll have it in our Bible and we won't need to duplicate it.
But what I'm saying is it's even worse with the Book of Lehi because we no longer have Lehi's words.
Oh, right.
We don't have them. At least we've got Revelation once. We don't have the prophet Lehi, what he said to his people, what he taught, those plain and precious things. But we put Isaiah down twice, a lot.
That is interesting, isn't it?
It is.
They should have made a second copy of Lehi. Either that or God should have just told Martin Harris, no.
Yeah, but what if those 116 pages, the original ones, what if they had turned up again? That would have fucked the whole thing up.
I think they almost did in the 1980s, but Mark Hoffman got arrested first.
They screwed the pooch there.
Oh, hey, DG is here. DG. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I kind of did that. DG, how are you doing out there in West Texas?
Doing okay. It's been a long week, kind of tired. It's way past my bedtime, but hey, got to stay on the show and be involved and having a whole lot of fun tonight.
Well, it must be. It's 10:25 there. Is that past your bedtime?
Yeah, it is.
When do you get up?
Usually 4:30.
Holy crap, morning comes early around these parts.
Well, if you want to get that worm in the bottom of the tequila bottle, you got to get up early.
Yes, what worm are you chasing?
The one at the bottom of the tequila bottle.
They don't do that anymore, DG. When I was a kid, I started drinking when I was 12. When I was 12 and I started drinking, there were still tequila bottles with worms at the bottom. And it was if you went to a place that had alcohol, and you know, I frequented a place or two, but
When you were 12?
all right, I'll
I'll
just
talking about 6th grade.
let me just tell you a little thing. So first off, and I'm not proud of this now. I'm just telling you stories. But I would go into the grocery store with friends, and we would take Mike's hard lemonade bottles. We'd stuff them down our pants. We'd take those out. We'd go to the other grocery store, and we'd take bigger bottles off the shelf. We had trench coat jackets. We put them in the pocket, and we heard them say something like, "Hey, we have a code 36 on aisle 7, a code 36 on aisle 7." And we knew immediately, like, shit. So we hurry up, took it back out, put it up back on the shelf, started to walk out, and we got confronted by store personnel. And they said, "We know what you did. We know it. Open up your jacket," you know, and go ahead. Nothing. But the main trick that we would use is we went to a drive-through, and this is not 12 years old. I'm a little older. I'm 15. My best friend is 16. He drives. I'm not driving yet. We went through a drive-through, and there was like a 25-year-old young guy. And I don't know how we figured out he would do this, but if you asked him for alcohol and you slipped him an extra $10 bill, he would give you what you asked for. So we'd go, "Hey, we'd like a case of Busch Light." And he'd say, "That's going to be $20. And you would give him $30, and then he wouldn't ask any more questions, and he would give you the booze. And so yeah. Anyway, Busch Light was my drink of choice as a young adolescent, prepubescent adolescent kid. So
Shoplifter.
Bill Real, not even at the age of 13, stuffing My Cards lemonade in his pants. Is that a My Cards lemonade, or are you just happy to see me?
Yeah, he's like the Artful Dodger.
except I'm not Dan Peterson.
Wow.
Anyway, there used to be worms at the bottom of the tequila bottle. I don't think I've not seen a tequila bottle with a worm at the bottom in 2 decades.
What happened? Did they run out of worms?
There's still, you just have to know where to look. There's a lot of Tex-Mex restaurants here, and they're everywhere on display on the shelf, and you can still get them.
What is the purpose of the worm at the bottom of a tequila bottle?
I guess, is it to prove its efficacy? Because if it can kill the worm, it's going to kill some brain cells.
It's like sending the canary into the cave, into the mining cave. It's if the canary doesn't come back out, probably don't want to go in there. But it's the opposite with the tequila. You're like, oh, yeah.
if the worm is still wriggling, it's probably watered down way much, you know. So that's how you know it's potent and strong, is if the worm is dead.
And that's why.
Yeah.
I don't know that's true, but we're sticking with that story.
What
right?
is the deal with drinking the worm? What is that about? Is that a thing?
You finish the bottle.
Eat the worm, yeah, because the worm's at the bottom of the bottle. So to finish the whole bottle and the worm, of course, by that point, if you're that deep into the bottle, you don't care about the worm. You don't even notice the worm. There's a worm.
You sound like you speak from experience, DG.
I know it sounds that way, but that's not true. This is what growing up Mormon way outside of Utah does to an individual. I mean, you know, I appreciated Bill's comment before the show started, you know, in the chat about, you know, this is what's so interesting that this brings us together. And one of my experiences was, you know, I wasn't allowed to date. I wasn't allowed to date anyone outside the faith. The pickings in the faith were pretty slim. So I went with my high school friends who were all non-members, and we did the honky tonks back in the day. So yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily drink, but we would get out there and do the Cotton Eye Joe and some others. That's how we all knew each other and were so well when it came to the New Year's Eve dance and the Golden Green Ball dance and all the dances we had at church, because we would invite our non-member friends, and it was so much more exciting that way than just the puerile bishop centric, we're going to keep an eye on you guys, on you youth.
DG just said puerile. I said puerile earlier. You don't hear that word a lot.
Oh, we use it all the time here in West Texas. It's a
I'll
thing.
bet you do there.
I wanted to say congratulations, RFM, on your Brody Awards. And
thank you very much.
Bill, did you get overlooked this year? Did I miss that? Or you left at the altar this year, or what?
Either I get overlooked a lot, or I'm just not producing the quality of content that Radio Free Mormon is.
Thanks for making it awkward, DG.
I will say this. In the top podcast category, they listed Mormon Discussion, and I haven't produced maybe 5 episodes in all of 2025.
And that's all you had to do to get nominated. You should feel good about that.
It really should have been in the channel category, and I would have been interested to see how our channel did if it was in the channel category like it should have been. And there were a lot of categories that we sort of doubled up. RFM's got Radio Free Mormon, and we also had Mormonism Live. And so I didn't win. RFM won twice. Nemo won a few times. John DeLynn won a few times. Rebecca Biblioteca won a few times. And Alyssa Grenfell won a few times. So kudos to the superstars. I'm just on the JV team. Maybe next year. It's like a Cleveland Browns fan. There's always
next year. Or
Dallas number Cowboys. 2, but he tries harder.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
Or the Dallas Cowboys. We're gonna go all the way to the Super Bowl next year, says the owner Jerry Jones. But I just thought it was interesting that as maybe AI didn't put as many votes in for you, Bill, as it did for RFM and Rebecca and the others. So
I don't think AI likes me because I'm on to AI and AI knows it.
I think AI is scared of you, RFM. That's why you got nominated and awarded. So
I think it's just trying to butter me up. To serve mankind. It's a cookbook.
To serve man.
Is it to serve man?
To serve man.
Okay, thank you.
We figured out the title.
DG in West Texas.
To serve man, yeah.
By the way, that reminds me of a joke. 2 Cleveland Browns walk into a bar, and the bartender responds, "I'm guessing you guys are here to watch the playoffs."
Yeah, that's funny, huh? I'm guessing you guys are here to watch the playoffs. I never heard that one before.
Touche. I don't really have anything else. Yeah,
DG, where are you gonna have a picture of Bill up on your wall?
Do I need to add a picture of Bill to my wall? I guess
he's feeling kind of down and neglected, and I think a picture on DG's wall would be just the thing to put a spring in.
Okay, tell me where to put it.
I want to be right between Bruce Willis and Star Wars.
Behind the lamp here.
I want to find an image of me like looking to the side so that me and Bruce are both looking at the Nakatomi building.
There's a space available. He could put you under Rebecca Biblioteca.
Yeah, maybe I'll put you right here so that you're on the opposite side of the Nakatomi, because that's all Japanese kanji and hiragana katakana. That
here 1 hour and 34 minutes. Oh, I got to go this way, don't I? I have to go this way, maybe.
Well, okay. I like your profile either way. Hey, DG, how do you know the names of all 3 what do you call it? The writing systems in Japan. How do you know that?
I went to Japan. I served my mission in Japan.
Have we already talked about this? The kanji, the hiragana, and the katakana?
But unlike you, I didn't do so well overseas. I actually went to the NTC twice. I served in Salt Lake City North mission while the rest of my group went over. This was back in 89. In fact, I was in Japan when Hirohito died. That was an interesting experience. I was in the Salt Lake City North mission. We frequented Temple Square a lot, which is why I think the church dismissing all the sister missionaries from Temple Square mission is interesting. They were the hottest missionaries I remember. And yeah, I've seen the comments on Reddit about, them releasing those missionaries, and they're going to have to serve real missions now. But it was tough, even as assigned to the international district as I was, fresh out of the MTC and couldn't speak a lick of Japanese, it was hard being in the Salt Lake City North Mission. I'll never forget our mission president at the time told us, he said, "Brethren, I know that I'm not going to have any problems with you guys obeying the mission rules because every freaking person in Salt Lake City was a spy for the church. So if they saw us doing, even if they saw us doing something that was legal on P-Day, they would turn us in. We saw you guys dressed in your civilian clothes out in the park throwing a Frisbee," and they would turn us in for just the dumbest stuff.
Oh my word.
So it
The
was,
night has 1,000 eyes.
yeah. So he said, "I don't have to worry about you missionaries adhering to the rules because I will find out about it." And he was right. But I went over about 6 weeks later, and they just sent me back to
Wait, he was right? He
Yeah.
did find out about something?
Oh, we had, I knew elders that were always being sent home. In fact, most of the group that I was with in Salt Lake, at least on the international foreign speaking side, they were all missionaries that had returned stateside for medical reasons and decided to finish out their mission stateside. And so that was the contingent I was with. They sent me back to the MTC to go over with the next group heading to Japan. And I was a lone elder in the MTC. It was awesome. You know,
you're a lone elder in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, they were always asking where my companion was. And I said, "I don't have a companion." And it was, what was so fascinating to me, and I learned a lot about this experience, was how quickly I could grind the entire MTC hierarchy to a halt with them trying to find my non-existent companion, because I was going through, you know, just for the second time. I spent like a week there on my second way through, but it was great. I would be walking by myself down the hallway. "Elder, where's your companion?" "I don't have one." "Oh, sure you don't. Come over here," you know, and I would just gridlock the entire system while they hunted for my missing companion. But I served in the Tokyo North Mission. I was in Tokyo itself, Shinjuku-ku, for about 4 months. In fact, when that movie Lost in Translation with Bill Murray came out, a lot of that was my old stomping grounds. It was amazing. I recognized, you know, Shinjuku Eki and Seibu, the Seibu department store, where the Seibu Lions play. But
Eki being a train station, by the way, for the gaijins out there.
That's all the Japanese I know, really. But I did serve. I ended up going up to Mito, a town about 2 hours north of Tokyo, between Tokyo and Sendai. Sendai mission was further north,
where many are cold but few are frozen.
Yes. Well, we always that was the elders in Hokkaido. They measured snow in meters up there. You know, you would have a 3-story apartment building and walk out the window of the 3rd floor because of how deep the snow was. But no, I enjoyed it. It was truly an experience, but I didn't learn much Japanese at all. I'm thankful that most of Tokyo, in fact, most of Japan, everything was in English subtitles, and really enjoyed it. But I came home. I got home early, sent home on a medical, and even though I didn't finish, but I came home with honor. It was still a horrendous experience because, you know, you weren't supposed to be home for another 1.5 years. What's your story? What did you do wrong?
You came home after only 6 months?
Yeah. So I served overseas in 6. So my whole mission was about 8 months. I was on my mission 8 months total. But I learned a lot about the church, a lot about the history in Salt Lake. Like I said, I didn't even know that there was a baptismal font in the tabernacle under the organ back in the day. So, you know, I grew up here in West Texas, and so
I guess I didn't know that.
Yeah. My exposure to all of the Mormons in Salt Lake City was, you know, I was like, who are these people? Am I even in the same religion? Was
it on 12 Oxen too? No?
It was in the basement. That's all I know. They've since renovated. I don't think it's there anymore, but yeah, there used to be a baptismal font under the tabernacle organ way back in the days.
They converted it into a jacuzzi for after conference use.
Time travel jacuzzi. But we would get all these international students from Japan. That's who we taught, and we would drive all up and down the valley. And usually, instead of just teaching them in the members' home, we would just say, "Hey, meet us at Temple Square, and we would take them through the visitor centers. And that was pretty much all 6 missionary discussion lessons right there was between the North and South visitor centers back in the old days.
So at what point during the visitor center tour did you commit them to baptism?
You know, we didn't have that rule to commit them as early as possible because.
So you waited until the gift shop?
Which one? I think after we went to the South, which one had the Christus statue? Was that the South Center? The South Visitor?
I can never keep them straight.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. It's been so long ago. I mean, 40 years. I think we would start talking about, do you want to join? Are you interested in having your soul saved? Now that you know what prophets are and what temples are about and being sealed for families together forever, how about we sign you up today? So we didn't have the basketball or baseball baptisms.
No. You had the Christus baptism.
Yeah.
Because this Jesus is very, very big. And if anybody can save your soul, he can.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, that was my experience, but it was not a marvelous, I knew early on that as soon as I got home, you had to do the speaking circuit. The stake president would have you get up and speak and how was your mission? And so I only had to say nothing but, positive, glowing remarks about my mission, but it was, I still have nightmares about it to this day. It was not the wonderful, marvelous experience that, most people would have you think about, or as I lied about in my post-mission talks and conference or whatever. And
in your letters home?
I wrote tons of letters home. I had
Did you lie in your letters home too?
Yeah. In fact, we used cassettes. We would record on cassettes and then send the cassette home.
They told you to. They told you guys to lie. They told you, do not tell your parents what's really going on out here. Tell them the best stuff. Tell them only the good things. Tell them good stuff is happening. Don't let them worry.
So what was fun about my mission, I say fun, it wasn't fun at all. So I questioned, the reason why I got sent to Salt Lake City first was because I made the mistake of questioning the training process in the MTC, and I got labeled as a problem missionary. So while the rest of my group went overseas, I got sent up to Salt Lake, and I got
okay. Whoa. DG, what did you question about the training process in the MTC, and to whom?
Do we have time? I don't want to.
If you can say it in 2 sentences or less.
I had, before my mission, it was highly recommended that I go on splits with the missionaries, to kind of learn the experience. And so the missionaries that came here on their mission, I would do splits with them. And I absolutely hated it because I remember we went to a small town about 30 minutes from here that was in their area. And we went knocking on doors, going door to door, hey, we've got a special message we'd like to share with you. And they got the door slammed on their face every freaking time. And after about an hour and a half of doing this, I'm like, this is what being a missionary is like? This sucks. And this is home. This is in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I go to the MTC, we're doing the practice door approaches, where we would practice your door approach, and then we would take turns all role playing our door approaches. And I was supposed to be the non-member answering the door, right? And so knock, 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 and I open the door. Hey, we're special representatives of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I just close the door saying, no, thanks, and slam the door. And the teacher's like, no, Elder G, what are you doing? You can't do this. And I said, well, what do we do when they slam the door in our face? What do we do when they say no? What do we do when we're being rejected? Because this was my experience before my mission. And I got labeled as a problem elder. I got sent to Salt Lake. I had to go through psychological evaluation. I saw Dr. Glenn Van Wagenen in the church office building every week. And, I was like, well, I called their bluff because I showed them I showed them my my patriarchal blessing, which states that I was called to Japan, and after serving as a full-time missionary in Japan, and I said, okay, is this true? Am I going to Japan or not? I was called to Japan.
But your patriarchal blessing said you're going to Japan?
Yes. There was a lot of elders, a lot of my friends here that were all being sent to Japan. I don't know why. I don't know what it was about West Texas, but there was a large contingent. In fact, there were two of my friends. One of my friends in high school, we were in the same mission together. He was also in Tokyo North. And then a friend of ours was up in Sendai. So I don't know what, there was a whole contingent of us all that were going to Japan. And
It
somehow,
seems very specific for a patriarchal blessing.
yeah, you would think so. But
And then you got called to Japan?
That I got called to Japan. Yeah. So I said, you know, my patriarchal blessing says I got called to Japan. So is my patriarchal blessing wrong? Or, you know, I put them in a very hard place. And so they ended up sending me overseas with the next group. But it was very stressful and very non-productive. And like I said, I still have nightmares to this day about it, but it was a marvelous experience. Got my Die Hard poster and met a lot of friends, and I learned.
Isn't it funny how naturally we go right back into it? Because I think you just did.
Yes.
Boy, this experience was horrible. I still have nightmares about it.
It was
But
horrible,
you know,
but it was great.
It was a marvelous experience, and you're right back into missionary mode.
Well, I learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot. I knew what it meant to be an American citizen traveling abroad. You know, the area, I'll never forget, we were in a Japanese family's home, and we were watching, what was it? It was an ABC miniseries called Cain and Abel. And it had come out earlier that year, and it was actually being broadcast on the Japanese TV network. And so this family invited us to watch this American movie, and it had, oh gosh, I remember the actors in it. It was a spoof on Cain and Abel, and it took place in the early 1900s, and it was about these two brothers that, you know, basically became bitter enemies. And there was a whole scene about World War II, and you see the mushroom cloud of the nuke, the atomic bomb over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And in this movie, they actually played the recording of the emperor surrendering, the famous broadcast of Hirohito on the radio, surrendering and telling his countrymen, you know, we give up. And this was a requirement that, who was the general that required it?
Was it MacArthur?
MacArthur? Yeah. So, you know, that was one of the stipulations, is that you will go on the radio, you know, I'm going to take a picture with you. And of course, MacArthur was huge compared to the emperor. And that was published in all the papers. And then his voice was to be broadcast on all the radio. And what, if you're not familiar with the Japanese culture, Hirohito is considered a god. You never heard him speak. You never saw him. You never heard his voice. And so MacArthur putting him on the radio was basically destroying most of their central, his deific calling. You know, it was destroying this myth of him being a deity. But in this movie we were watching on TV in this family's house, they had an excerpt of that radio recording as part of the movie, and all of the members are they're stunned, because even in 1989, one did not hear the voice of the emperor. And so it was very surreal. And that's when I realized, you know, the whole American occupation of that country after World War II, the post-war reindustrialization of Japan. And I would ask people, you know, what does it feel like, you know, to have been bombed by the United States with a nuclear weapon? And one guy, he mouthed off to me and he said, well, we're not too upset because you rebuilt our country, and now look what we're doing to you. And he was referring to the Japanese auto industry that was just whopping the tar out of Detroit. And in the 80s, that was a big deal. So, I mean, I learned a lot. It was a good thing. But in terms of accomplishing saving people and bringing in the Jesus, no, I failed miserably. And it was a terrible experience. I didn't know the language. I couldn't do anything. I was, you know, basically just there as a tourist. And I finally had so much anxiety that I was having health problems. And I had phone calls with headquarters in Salt Lake in Japan. And they're like, hey, Elder, what if we were to send you back to the States in the highest baptizingest mission in the country? And I'm like, no, thanks. I was already in Salt Lake. I don't want to go back. I just want to go home and get back into college and get on with my life. And that's what I did. So.
Wow. I didn't get that option.
No. And I will tell you that, you know, at that time, because just to the north of Mito was Stachi, or as we Americans would call it, Hitachi. And that's where all the electronics were made. And so all of the boom boxes, the, what were they called? The the cassettes,
Walkmans,
the Sony Walkmans, the VCRs, the cameras, anything electronics. It was all made in Japan. But I'm here to tell you, when I had to go to the Catholic hospital and have a lower GI done without an anesthetic, there was nothing small about that endoscope. And here I am butt naked in front of a room full of all these young Japanese nurses, you know, having my innards looked at. That's an experience I'll never forget. But yeah, I didn't mention that in my talk after my mission. So yeah, it was a good experience learning as an American and being a social awkward individual youth from West Texas to go into the big world and go into one of the most populous cities on the planet and go, huh, so this is Tokyo. Wow. You know, the culture shock was horrible. I mean, it was reverse culture shock. And when I got back stateside, I'm like, man, everything is so big. I don't remember things being this big before. And to see how a completely different culture lives, breathes, and, you know, that island has absolutely no natural resources. They have to import everything and
hey, rice.
Except rice. Yeah. And how they recycle everything, you know, and I loved the members. I thought it was great, but you know, my experience as a missionary was quite useless. And I don't know when you were there 10 years prior to me, RFM, but Japan was one of the most expensive missions in the world, and still
it was all evened out at the time I went.
Okay.
But at least you got to undress in front of a lot of nurses.
Yeah.
Not all bad.
Well, you know, the prep work, I had to take all of, you know, every time you have a lower GI, you've got to take the diuretics and the medicine that cleans you out. And yeah, I did that right before a sacrament meeting. And I was not able to take the sacrament that particular day because I was in the toilet just letting loose. You know, as I said last time, my bowels were filled with compassion. Oh boy.
Well, I'm so glad you shared that with us.
You know, that's what I'm here for. I figured it was.
Yes.
You're welcome, Rock Hunter. I'm sure the show was slow enough today, and I really just wanted to say congrats on getting the awards and just call it a night. But anyway, RFM always brings out the best in me, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
Well, DG.
Take care.
So
Yeah.
See you later. Bye-bye. Have a good night back in that West Texas town of El Paso. Some people call it Lubbock, though.
It is Lubbock. We're at 9:52, so we're a little past.
We are past, but you know, it's been a great ride, and I'm glad that DG was able to join us and tell us about his mission. Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
What's this?
This is what I was working on earlier. I was creating images of you and me that are a little more in line with the way we dress. The only downside here is that I've got like green eyes and you've got blue eyes. And I think in real life, we both have brown.
No, I have blue eyes. You don't even know what color my eyes are. I don't know. I just feel used.
Well, okay. But
and I've got my sometimes it doesn't make it into this. Yeah, there you go. The what do you call it? The pocket hanky. There you go. There it is over there. See, it's usually down just below the screen, so you can't see it, but you can see it in that thumbnail you had.
Yeah,
I like that.
All right, well, my friend, it is another episode of Mormonism After Dark. We did it. It's done.
I really enjoy this show. I look forward to the show every week. I hope everybody else out there does too. It's a nice time to just sit and chat and reflect on the week past and maybe talk about what's coming up in the next week.
I think Mormonism After Dark is a great time to just joke around a little bit and talk about some things that couldn't make up a full episode elsewhere. But it gives us a chance to connect with the audience and to talk about things that are meaningful to us and striking us during the week. So I do love it.
Yeah. Well, thanks to everybody for joining us. If that's all you've got to say, Bill, hopefully everybody will join me tomorrow night for Mormonism. No, it's Radio Free Mormon tomorrow night, premiering at 7:00 p.m. Mountain Time. Should be good. I'm going to work hard to keep it in under an hour. If I come in about 30 minutes, it's going to be a miracle, but I'll work for that miracle, okay? Anyway, I know what I'm going to say, and I'm going to say it, and it's really good, so I hope you'll join me. Bill and Rebecca will join me, and I'll join them on Monday night for the Mormon Newscast, which is on MLK Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, this Monday. And then next Wednesday, we'll be having Mormonism Live 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time, both the newscast and Mormonism Live. So join us for these wonderful shows under the Great Mormon Discussions podcast brand. Thanks for joining us. Have a great Friday night and a wonderful weekend, everybody. Good night.
Good night.